I was introduced by a very beautiful young Jamaican woman. She was young then, it's quite a long time, a little bit older now. Uh, I was at business networking and I just started this business selling air and water filters. And in those days, this is the early 90s, the way that you sold them was that you'd let the prospective buyer try the product first and then ask them if they would like to buy it. So, and this lady, I got talking to her and she agreed to try one of my water filters. So I went round to her house uh, and I plumbed it on her tap under the sink. And I left it. You were supposed to leave it for a week. I left it for 6 weeks because there was a lot going on in my life at the time, um, a lot of turmoil. And anyway, 6 weeks later, I go back to her house to see if she's going to buy the water filter. And all I was thinking, I really wanted to buy this water filter. It was worth 150 quid in cash to me. And that's all I had in my mind. And so there I was sitting on her couch talking to her. And then there was this moment when I looked into her eyes and they were glowing. And I thought, wow, her eyes are glowing. What is that? And I felt that whatever it was, I wanted some of it. And uh, next thing I know, she's given me a book about Buddhism, a book called The Buddhism of the Sun. It's not in print anymore, or you might be able to get it on the internet. I started reading this and I connected so strongly with this book. I actually felt that I had written the book myself, which is absurd, of course, since I'd never been in print. But that's how strongly I connected with it. I then found out that there was a chant involved, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I tried the chant. The first time I chanted for an entire hour. And what came up was an incredible amount of anger that I'd built up in my life. I was like 35 years old then. And it all sort of began to come to the surface. So that was my introduction, really. And I've never looked back since. So our core values as a practitioner of Nichiren Buddhism is something called the three kinds of treasure. The first core value is that we are treasures and that I need to treasure my own life. And therefore, that gives me the ability to treasure other people's lives, not just other people, but all life in general. So one of our fundamental principles is respect for the dignity and sanctity of all life, sentient and insentient. That's one of the key values. And these three treasures are, and I'll use a quote from Nichiren Daishonin, who is the Buddha that um, awakened belief in the Lotus teaching, which is what we follow, with the phrase Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo means I devote myself to the Lotus teaching, transmitted by sound. But Myo means a variety of different things, including perfectly endowed as a spiritual being, to open your life, to new things and to start each day afresh. Renge means the law of cause and effect. That means simply if you put a pebble in a pond, it creates a ripple. So where was I? Yeah, the three kinds of treasure. Nichiren Daishonin, who lived in the 13th century, wrote a letter to one of his followers called The Three Kinds of Treasure. And in it, he explains that more valuable than the treasures of the storehouse are the treasures of the body. And most valuable of all are the treasures of the heart, and that we should strive to accumulate the treasures of the heart. The treasures of the storehouse, things like your possessions, your money, the treasures of the body, your family, your talents, your looks, are secondary. He proposes that these are secondary to the treasures of the heart, which is how you respect yourself, how you respect others, how you respect life, all life, not just some life, all of it. So this is these are the key core values. Another value I'd like to mention is called poison, turning poison into medicine. So in our lives, we have the positive and the negative, if you like. The positive being wisdom, compassion, and courage. The negatives being greed, anger, and ignorance or foolishness. So one of our core values is to work on ourselves, actually, on a daily basis, and to work against our greed, anger, and foolishness, because these are sort of natural occurring properties of the human being. So this is a core value of Buddhism, is to actually transform these negative aspects into the positive. Wisdom, compassion, and courage. We all have access, we all have that potential to manifest these three positive aspects of being a human being. So I would say these are the core values of being a Nichiren Buddhist. I suppose before I practiced, I didn't really have a life purpose, an overall life purpose. My life was just existence, living day to day, fulfilling my own sort of selfish little needs. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Of course, you have to fulfill your personal needs, but I never really thought that much about other people or helping other people, for instance, and or supporting other people in the way that I do now. So that's really changed in my life, and I think I have this life purpose now, which is about continually manifesting peace in my own heart. And that's difficult when you've got a lot of difficult situations to confront, difficult people, dealing with difficult people, dealing with a world where there's discrimination and prejudice, for instance. It can be very difficult to maintain a peaceful attitude, an attitude of gratitude in that environment. So I think that's the meaning that I've got from practicing Buddhism, that I can do that, and that I have my life purpose is to maintain this heart of peace. And it does take a lot of maintaining, which is why we chant, and then to spread those seeds of peace in my environment, with the people that I meet, with everyone that I meet, and to actually respect every person that is standing in front of me. Now that is challenging as well, isn't it? Sometimes it's really difficult, really tough thing to do when people who want to abuse you, for instance, are standing in front of you. But I have managed to do that, and even when people have come up to me to attack me, and that's through my Buddhist practice. So the meaning of my life has changed 360 degrees, from smaller stuff into having a much bigger picture about who I am in the world. I am a Buddha. That's a label, by the way, for a spiritual being, and as well as being a human being. My larger self, my spiritual self, is infinite, and whereas my human self is finite. I only have a limited lifespan, and I have limited abilities to manage difficult situations, but my spiritual practice gives me access to my spiritual self, which can manage much bigger tasks, like confronting discrimination when I come across it, which I have done a lot in my life, being a black man. But other people are discriminated against for other reasons. You could be discriminated because you're a man, or because you're a woman, or because you're white. There's lots of discrimination in the world, which is the world is rife with it, isn't it? So yeah, that's what I would say. I suppose the main benefit I've got from my religious practice is that I have a clear philosophy of life, which I didn't have before. as well as having a clear purpose, I have a clear philosophy, and Buddhism supplies us with an immense book of philosophy, and included in that is I'm a man of peace. I've become a man of peace. I'm against war. I'm against, how do I put it? Conflict that leads to war. I'm against that. And I'm able to transform my anger. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I have a great deal of anger about what's going on in the outside world, for instance, at this present time, but I'm able to transform that. Just in the same way that we eat food and drink, our bodies transforms that into waste. Our spiritual being can transform through meditation and practice, can transform the negative aspects of life, negative energies. And that's what I use it for. So I would say that that's a huge, huge benefit. And another benefit for me is our Buddhist teaching shows us how to use wisdom. So instead of wisdom versus discriminatory thinking, that means I think this about that, or I think that about that, but actually I don't use that as a means of taking action in the world. What I use as a means for taking action in the world is that I meditate, I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and access a deeper wisdom before I take action in the world, or even before I speak, actually, a lot of the time. Even my thoughts, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo purifies thought, word, and action. You don't have to believe that, it just does, and that's what I found it to do. So you don't even have to be a believer, you can actually do that. So that's a benefit, isn't it? So yeah, I would say that these are the main benefits that I've accrued or attained through the practice of Nichiren Buddhism. If you're somebody who doesn't have a particular faith, that's a faith in itself, because really faith is about belief for me. And I would only urge people to believe in yourselves, believe that you have the ability and the potential to be anything that you want. And if you're struggling with that, as I was when I was a young person, then that could be a reason to take up a particular faith that you find attractive. I would certainly research it if I were you. And I certainly did with Buddhism. I learned about it as I went along. And then also to acknowledge your higher self, acknowledge the universe, the earth, the oceans, the sky, the stars. This is your higher self. In Buddhism, we call it your higher self. Other people call it other labels like God and stuff like that. But to acknowledge that and to connect with it, I would ask you the question, do you have a means by which to do so? And that's the reason for having a faith, a means to connect with your higher self, and to access that power as well that comes with that. For example, the power to transform your anger and to transform your greed. We call these the three poisons, don't we, in Buddhism, and to transform your foolishness. As human beings, we can be very foolish. I have been in my life. I don't know about you, but we can be very foolish at times. And we need to find a means to transform that. Otherwise, it can get us into a lot of trouble. So yeah, that's all I would say to someone who's looking to pick up, a faith, one of the organized faiths, or if it's just faith in yourself, do you have a means to connect with your higher self? That's what I would say. And in terms of Nichiren Buddhism, if you're interested in joining Nichiren Buddhism, just go to our sgi-uk.org website and you can read all about it. Thank you.